हमारा मीटअप हो रहा है, जिनके वजह से आज का ये हमारा सेशन हो रहा है. सो कैन वी ऑल वेलकम आकाश सर. Yes.
Thank you, Viral sir, for the great introduction. And also we have with us the person who is going to take the session forward, that is Mr. Hardik Bora. So let me just take a short while and introduce Mr. Hardik Bora. So he's a CFA chartered holder. Also, he has 6+ years of experience working as a research analyst and associate with multiple companies like Khanwala Securities, Dollar Capital, and Motilal Oswal as well. And he has a long time working with Union Mutual Fund. I guess it is 7+ years, and more than 2+ years he has been a fund manager. And we have seen a lot of good things happening in Union post the fund management team has changed and a lot of good things have happened. So in the past 3 to 4 years, we can see brilliant returns coming in most of the funds where they are in quartile 1, quartile 2. So yes, that is about Hardik sir. And also one of the important things, he manages more than 3,800 crores of assets in equity with Union Mutual Fund. Welcome Hardik sir. Welcome to Shah Investments. And I would also like to introduce you to our partners. So a lot of our partners have come here. They are from different walks of life. So we can see some police people from the police have come here. Some are people who are from pharma. Some are people who have come from different time zones who are NRIs. Some are business people who have joined us. So we can see Mr. Amar Marathe, he is a police inspector, he is here and he is happily waving a hand. So thanks to all of you for taking out time on a Saturday morning and joining us for the conference. So sir, we are also joined by Pride Educare, who is an event partner, and a lot of students from Pride Educare have also joined in to understand the concept of buy low and sell high. So what we see is in the industry, few of the fund houses have mastered the technique of buying low, selling high, and have made a lot of good returns for a lot of clients across. So we would just like to understand what the concept is, how the balanced advantage fund works, what is the fair value mechanism you have, and why is it important, or even is it important to have some part of the portfolio into that kind of a product, and does it create huge alpha? How does it happen? What happens? So if you could just throw some light on that, we are all here to listen it from you, sir. Please.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you, Akash, for that lovely introduction, and honored to be part of this discussion. Honored to be invited, and heard some great people have joined the call from different backgrounds. So I will jump right to it. So I think there are a couple of few things actually we need to cover here. One thing is, of course, how is currently things being done at Union Mutual Fund? How are we generating the kind of return we are generating? The concept of fair value that you alluded to. But I'm sure the biggest, the meaty part of the discussion is supposed to be, what should we do now? Markets have gone up so much. What about valuation? Should we wait? Should we invest? Where should we invest? So we will try to keep large part of our discussion anchored around that topic. Okay. And I would just try to give a brief about how do we do things at Union Mutual Fund, so that it gives a good, segue into how exactly are we looking at markets. So we don't believe in the concept of P multiple when we look at the index. Index P आपको कुछ बताता नहीं. It gives you very little information, and it is not that people are dishonest जब वो बोलते हैं P multiple इतना है तो market सस्ता या महंगा है. The problem is index is a combination of 50 stocks if it's Nifty 50, 100 stock if it's BSE 100, और जब आप 100 stocks या 50 stocks के combination पे P multiple calculate करते हो, there are a lot of arithmetic issues that go into it. Okay. So that makes the P multiple, like the P multiple can simply go down if your low P businesses का importance increases in the index. मान लीजिए अगर हमारे पास 10 साल पहले top company ONGC थी, oil marketing companies थी, some PSU banks were there. आज के जमाने में अगर आप देखो तो top companies are your IT companies which have a very high P multiple, your or automobile companies like Eicher have been introduced in the Nifty. So your P multiple also changes because high P multiple or other expensive companies keep entering the market. So P multiple देखना नहीं चाहिए. Then what should we look at? So we at Union Mutual Fund have come up with a concept. It's called the concept of fair value. Fair value is कोई ज़्यादा complicated चीज नहीं है. It's not something that we have invented. 1950 से इसका यूज होता आ रहा है. Fair value is like the, हिंदी में बोलूं तो मूल्य, कोई भी चीज का मूल्य क्या है. And price is what we pay, that is the dam, right? So hypothetically, let's say someone walked up to us on the street and said, "ये है 10 gram की gold chain. I need money right now, and I'm willing to sell it to you for 30,000 rupees." Assuming you believe it's a proper gold chain, there's nothing wrong with it. Since you know the price of gold, you won't hesitate in making that purchase from him. 30,000 rupees is very cheap compared to the 55,000-60,000 rupees का price जो आपको मिल जाएगा after making charges. So because you have an idea of what should be the value, आप ये decide कर सकते हो, should you invest, should you buy or not buy. We at Union Mutual Fund try to do something very similar. You can calculate the fair worth of all the businesses that are listed with certain amount of estimation. And if you can understand what the fair worth is today, what it can be tomorrow, you can decide, whether you should buy something or not. So this is how we do things at Union Mutual Fund. We basically try to estimate the fair value of each and every business we buy. And only if we can calculate the fair value, buy the business, or we don't buy the business. Now, how do I connect this with the outlook on the markets? That ये सब तो ठीक है, markets पे आप इस पे कैसे पहुंचोगे? So we basically calculate the fair value of Nifty also. So where is Nifty? What is the fair value of Nifty? And where is the price of Nifty? And based on that, should you really buy today or buy later, or how should you buy? So I think there are two questions to be answered here. First of all, मान लीजिए आपको ये information मिल भी जाती है that markets are expensive, hypothetically. Someone tells you that and you are convinced. Does that mean that you should not invest? Is the first important point that you have to understand. And I think I can share screen, right?
Yeah, you can. You are the co-host.
Okay, all right. So I'll just show this this screen, which is a pictorial depiction. It is taken from a public website only. It is recently, just today only took it. So this is basically a logarithmic chart of Nifty. जो हमारा broad Nifty index है उसका logarithmic chart है. Logarithmic से क्या होता है, आपको एक return के perspective से idea मिल जाती है. जब हम normal chart देखते हैं तो what we see is it simply is going up and you see a lot of volatility. A logarithmic chart helps you understand returns के perspective से how is it moving. From every one point, how is it moving?
Correct.
So if you see, the dips are not as frequent as the highs. जितनी बार निफ्टी नीचे गिर रहा है उससे काफी जल्दी ऊपर भी जा रहा है. So even if someone gives you the information that markets are expensive, it's tough to figure out if it falls, how much will it fall by, how long will it take to fall, and how quickly will it go up. This is something that is not considered an activity that anybody has done. Even the experts in the market are not really able to do it. While Akash said that buy low, sell high, it's a very common phenomenon. It's like saying that don't forget exercising every day, but people are not able to do it for many reasons. And in investing specifically, it is because I'm emotional human beings. We are emotional animals, and when markets are very expensive, we are driven by greed. When markets are very cheap, we are driven by fear. I think March 2020 when markets were very cheap, people were not really going out and investing. I can admit, being a fund manager, admitting to being an expert, even I was not able to invest all my savings. If I wanted to invest 100%, I could only invest 40%. Despite my model telling me markets are cheap and our own balance advantage fund going up. But I thought, let me stagger it. एक महीने बाद करूंगा और अच्छा लेवल मिल जाएगा निफ्टी का और मार्केट्स का. So that doesn't happen. So first of all, if I tell you that markets are expensive or cheap, there are two things to keep in mind. One, what do you do with your lump sum savings? And second, what about your long-term goal planning and asset allocation? अभी दोनों क्यों अलग सवाल हैं? See, if you have all the money today, you want to invest a large sum, 5 lakhs, maybe a few lakhs, maybe a crore, whatever. You have a large saving available with you today. Lump sum invest करना है. तो then markets expensive and cheap का maybe आप use कर सकते हो उस information का, शायद से अपने asset allocation decide कर सकते हो. But that will still depend upon your overall asset allocation. See, based on your own risk return, आपको जो आपके long term investment के goals हैं, there is certain allocation in equity that you need to have. Or else you could be someone who doesn't need to take any risk and you might not need any equity. You could have that situation based on your own personal requirement in life as to what you want to achieve. So keeping that in mind, आपके लॉन्ग टर्म एसेट एलोकेशन का जो डिसीजन है वो मार्केट्स एक्सपेंसिव और सस्ते इसके ऊपर डिपेंड नहीं करता है. It depends upon where you are in your investment journey. If I am a person who's in his mid 30s, then I need to have allocation to equity. I cannot stay out saying markets are expensive, I'll invest later, because that in later doesn't come at the right time, first of all. And even if that is your worry, and we understand that is actually logical worry, you would say that if markets expensive, what is the harm in waiting out? There are investment products which help you take care of this difficulty.
Okay.
So if you are investing in, let's say, balance advantage funds today, this is a product which, while it has been available to Indian investors for a long time, कोई balance advantage fund की history अभी 10 साल की आसपास हो गई है. So while this product has been there, but this overall category has been misunderstood. पहले इस category को income category की तरफ बेचा गया था. बहुत सारी चीजें हुई, but इस category का एकदम simple जो ये आकाश जी ने जो भी कही बात, you have to buy low, sell high. This category tries to do that. Now, some funds, some AMCs have a good strategy in achieving this, right? And how does this look? I will show that to you. So there is one more slide that I had prepared for this. So this is, let's say, our balance advantage fund and the data over here. So the way it shows is that if when markets are expensive, मान लीजिए कि एक fund है who operates like this, right? Who basically, this is our balance advantage fund का model का allocation. The red line is the allocation to equity, and the green line is Nifty का line. Nifty किस तरह से move हुआ है. If a fund can do what this chart is showing, that is when market falls. If you will notice the period in this period in March 2020, there was a big fall in the market.
Correct.
Allocation to equity went all the way up to 80%. And then it stayed at 80% for a very good time, 3 months plus. And then when the markets have become expensive, it has also reduced its allocation. So if some fund houses have this kind of a model in place, जहाँ पे वो markets में based on the valuation in and out of equity invest कर पाएं, then this kind of outcome is possible. What is this table? If you look at it, so this is the data for the last 9 years rolling basis पे. So we have 3-year rolling returns. So it's like अगर आप investor हो, आप हर साल के दिसंबर में तो नहीं इन्वेस्ट करोगे. You have the freedom to invest at any point of time and move out at any point of time. That is the promise of liquidity given by mutual funds. So rolling returns देखना better होता है. Rolling returns में what we do is we calculate 3-year returns every day. So from 31st March 2012 to 31st March 2015, 1st April 2015 to 1st April 2016 and 18 and so on and so forth. So it is a rolling return on a 3-year basis.
Correct.
इससे क्या होता है कि आपको पता चलता है कितनी कंसिस्टेंसी से फंड जो अपना ऑब्जेक्टिव है वो डिलीवर कर रहा है.
बिल्कुल.
Now, if you look at the 3-year returns for our balance advantage model that we've had, the minimum return that even if you made on the overall market, अगर आप 3 साल का होल्डिंग रखते हो, the overall negative returns that you will make on the market on a CAGR basis is -5%, which on a simple return कर दूं, उसको CAGR को हटा दूं तो -15% है. That is the maximum you can lose in the market on a CAGR basis, and that has also in the market happened only 33 times out of 1580 observations that we have. यानी कि out of roughly 9 years of this data point, 33 days में you would have had negative returns. Remaining times में on a 3-year basis पे you would have had positive returns. So what you have to understand is that if your holding period is long enough, the negative returns don't stay with you for a long period of time. And usi ke samne, if you look at the balance advantage fund, that has given relatively very low negative returns, and the instances are also low. Why does this happen? Because when markets are expensive, the balance advantage fund goes and sits in equity. Right now, and quite a many balance advantage funds have almost close to less than 30% allocation to equity. So we are also sitting at 30% allocation to equity. Rest of it is in fixed income or arbitrage products, which ensures that capital protected रहेगा और थोड़ा interest rate के हिसाब से grow होता रहेगा. When markets are very, very cheap, like they were in March 2020, we will go ahead and increase the allocation to as high as we have in our overall system. So we will go all the way up to 80. Some will go up to 75. Some will go up to 90. But they will go all the way up, and then 90% आपका पैसा, 80% आपका पैसा equity में invested है. So when markets will go up, that will give you the benefit. So because आप ये volatility से बच जाते हो, when markets fall, आपका portfolio उतना गिरेगा नहीं. When markets will rise, you will take the benefit also. Net, the average returns are broadly the same if you see between a balance advantage model and that of a Nifty model. Now, this is the model. For our model, we don't have that long history. So this is a back-tested data. But the back-tested data is based on the same model that has been in implementation since last 3.5 years. So while this is not based on our actual NAV because we don't have that much of history, but अगर आप हमारे फंड का since inception history देखोगे तो उसका performance ऐसा ही रहा है. In March 2020, as I said, our allocation in equity had gone up all the way to 80. So this is the point on what you should do if you have a lump sum. Our recommendation would be balance advantage fund at this point of time is a very good place to park your money if you have a lump sum investment. Akash, do you want to take questions towards the end or?
I have one question, sir, which has been asked, which is related to what you are speaking right now. So if you want, I could just...
Sure. No, let's take it.
Yeah. So one of the questions is the model is very well managed, and one of our clients has a question like in March last year when there was uncertainty across the globe, and at that time you moved your equity allocations up to 80%. So what was the logic behind it?
I'll give a very nice example here. I think quite a lot of us are interested in the concept of real estate, so that we understand well. मान लीजिए आपके पास एक बॉम्बे में एक फ्लैट है. You own a flat somewhere in Bandra. It's a 2 crore flat, and you have given it to someone on rent. ठीक है. So मान लेते 3% का yield मिलता है typically in Bombay. So 6 लाख का आपको rent मिल रहा है साल का. Now what happened is that pandemic आ गया. 22nd March को 23rd March को we were told that we will now go in lockdown. And your tenant told you that I am not able to pay you rent for half year. Okay, things have gone bad. So you said, "Okay, for this year, pay me half. I'll understand," because everywhere that was happening. सब जगह पे सब लोग अपने rental income को कम कर रहे थे. Even listed companies like Phoenix did that. So आपका rental income इस साल 3 lakhs आ गया. पिछले साल 6 लाख था. Now the decline in your rental income year on year is how much? It's 50%. Half of your rental income for this year has fallen down. Anybody who has gone through this situation, they will not reduce the value of their apartment from 2 crores to 1 crore. आपके apartment की value 2 crore ही है. आपका सिर्फ एक साल का rent आधा हो गया.
Correct.
Why is this important to understand? We know that real estate is a long-term asset. आज नहीं तो कल ना कल तो rent आ जाएगा. Pandemic अभी है, कुछ कभी ना कभी तो खत्म हो जाएगा.
100%.
So these are long-term assets. When you think of long-term assets, we don't care about 1 year income. We have to understand that companies that are listed also are long-term assets. Some of these companies have been in existence for already more than 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, right? And if you look at their balance sheets, some automakers on their balance sheets have 25,000 crores of cash. और एक pandemic की वजह से अगर एक quarter में वो कुछ बेचें भी नहीं, then the expenses, cost of running, paying salaries, having some office work done, basic maintenance cost of the business, that is something close to, let's say, 500 to 700 crores. So these companies can withstand 7-8 lockdowns. So what you have to understand is that जब ये fall आता है ऐसा, whenever a shock comes, the first reaction is of fear. So markets correct. Nobody understood why they are correcting. People were, वो time पे तो ऐसे hypothesis आ रहे थे कि world will end. We were I was reading analysis with how this is similar to the 1923 of Great Depression.
Correct. Very true.
So people were very afraid, and at all levels, investors, journalists, everybody was trying to figure out. People were drawing comparison with the Spanish influenza in 1917. So many things were happening at that time. And जब fear होता है, people don't think logically. So when you have a fair value model like we have, it does the same calculation like I gave you with the real estate example. भाई अगर आपका apartment है and if the income for 1 year reduces by half, This is a long-term asset. You will keep making 6 lakhs and with a growth rate for a very long period of time if all things go, as per our current understanding. So that means you should not be paying too much attention to what is happening in the next 1 year, 2 year. Think about what's going to happen in the future. And this is how we took a call. Now, to come exactly to the point as to how we took a call about why should we go to 80% when things were so bad or were looking so gloomy. So the red line over here is basically our estimation of the fair value of Nifty. Like that gold chain example, I know what the value of the gold chain is. I know what I should be, what I will get if I walk into a Tanishq store, if I walk into a Senko store. I know what I will have to pay for basically a 10-gram gold chain. I know the value. So हमें Nifty की value का एक अंदाजा है. This is the red line which shows that. This is our internal estimate, by the way.
Correct.
And we have back tested this. As we have seen, the red line and the blue line. Blue line is the price of Nifty. They have danced with each other very closely. But the green line and the blue line, the profits of Nifty are the green line here. उन दोनों के बीच में कोई रिलेशनशिप नहीं है. They have only moved away from each other. So मान लीजिए अगर आप P मल्टीपल के बेसिस पे FY12 में यानी कि मार्च 2012 में डिसीजन लेते हैं, आप कहते हैं ठीक है फेयर है, and the profits would not have gone anywhere compared to the Nifty. Nifty जा ही रहा है ऊपर. Markets have kept gotten expensive according to you if you were using that analysis. But that is not the case. The fair value, if you see, is constantly going up. So in March 2020, the price crashed. You look the gap that opened. There's a big V that you see in the price.
Correct. Yes. Between the
blue
and the red line.
Yes. And the red line, we went back to the blackboard. We tried to do calculations कि भाई 6 महीने सब कंपनियों के बिजनेस को बंद करके देखते हैं क्या होगा. What will be the impact on the fair value of businesses? निफ्टी के सारे 50 कंपनीज पे हमने ये एक्सरसाइज की. We had about 180 companies under coverage. सब पे एक्सरसाइज की, and then we realized some companies will have a greater impact and some companies actually benefited by the lockdown, by the way. So all the IT companies, उनकी इंडस्ट्री 10% से बढ़ गई because of lockdown. Without the lockdown, they would not have shown the growth they have shown. So they actually went ahead and benefited because of the lockdown. So some segments of the market benefited, some segments of the market or the economy got hurt badly, and there were some segments which were okay. They were not hurt, they were not supported, like pharma. Things were going on, people were buying medicines as they wanted. So the fair value was where it was. It didn't fall materially. There was a low single digit kind of a correction, but the price fell. And this is how our model said, this is the time to allocate to money in equity. And we went ahead and did that. The reverse situation exists today and we are at 30%.
Okay. Understood.
So hence, if you have lump sum investments, you have lump sum savings today, and आप ये पूछ रहे हो कि मैं saving का क्या करूं at this juncture, given that markets right now are not cheap, as you can see by this chart, it makes more sense to enter into balance advantage funds, which will dynamically manage asset dynamically, यानी कि on its own वो change करते रहेंगे allocation को equity और debt के बीच में और arbitrage के बीच में. They will do this on your behalf. You don't have to worry because human beings are not rational animals. जैसे मैंने कहा, ये line मैंने तभी भी देखी थी, दोनों blue line और red line. And despite this gap being, even I could not go ahead and invest all the savings I had immediately at one go. So because even I was thinking a model to say, but what if, because there were so many news articles coming. So even experts are prone to emotions. So it's not a fact about being an expert or a novice in this concept. When it comes to our personal wealth, everybody is emotional. So from that perspective, the money, however, is not at all, the money is not really a living being. It doesn't have any emotions. It will either go up on its own or it will fall, depending on how you treat it. तो जितना rational आप रह सको अपने wealth के साथ उतना better है. And this balance advantage fund helps you do that. That changes the allocation between equity and debt, as you can see, based on how the market is. So it takes that decision making out of you. So आपका headache उस मामले में कम हो जाता है. And Shah Investment कोई बाद में आपको बार-बार बोलना नहीं पड़ेगा, सस्ता है, market में डालो महंगा है. Balance advantage fund helps you manage that part also, if you are concerned that whether you will be able to time properly or not. So that's why even balance advantage is one of the most recommended categories at this point of time.
Understood.
Now, what do you do if you still want to invest in equity? आप बोलते हो कि नहीं मुझे ये नहीं करना, I think I can invest in equity, मेरा risk appetite ज़्यादा है. Our recommendation still is कि SIP, so you should continue because SIPs are relatively a small part of your overall wealth. Anybody who has been doing SIP for 5 years, उसका monthly SIP is a small percentage of his total wealth today.
Very true.
तो आप कोई बड़ा, you're not firing a big shot in one go. आप, you're basically going small anyways. So वो continue रखना है. 6 महीने पहले मिलते markets were not expensive. उसके 6 महीने पहले मिलते markets were very cheap. Markets तो रुख बदलते रहेंगे. Your long-term investment should basically be based on your own long-term asset allocation requirement. आपके goals को ध्यान में रखें. So that is the answer on what you should do with SIPs. If you still have lump sum and you are saying no, I still believe that investing in equity makes a lot of sense. ये जो chart देख के काफी अच्छा लगा that equities have given long-term returns. I don't want a balance advantage. I'm willing to take that risk. Then go through something called as an STP mode. Installment में पैसे जाएंगे आपके. So you can participate through STP. It's what happens is that you will invest all your savings with one mutual fund today, but वो आपका पैसा equity markets में installments में invest करेंगे. So you can choose that, okay, I want to go into this category. मुझे लगता है कि flexi cap will do well या small cap will do well. You can participate through STP. This way, if you stagger it, if you break it up over 6 months, आपके पास अगर 1 लाख है, आप 16,000 करके अगर आप next 6 महीने में invest करेंगे market में, so what will happen is that if the market is falling, you will be able to buy something at that level. If the market goes up, you'll buy something at that level. आप average कर लोगे आपके current purchase को. And in any which ways, if the market crashes, we will always come and communicate the same to you. Shah Investment will also come and tell you that yes, markets are very cheap now. They have fallen by 10-15% whatever, and now break your STP, सारा पैसा अभी डाल दो. So that also is an option available, but don't invest lump sum completely in equity today. So this is how I would say our view of the market stands, what people should do, and I think I have probably given a decent part of my talk. So let's open it up for questions. Unless Akash, you have something that you want to ask.
Yeah. So Hardik sir, I have few questions already from the clients.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting question has come up while we were discussing on the balanced advantage fund and the model that you have in place. So we have Mr. Anuj Shah. He has a very good question to ask. How does balanced advantage fund investment philosophy compare to how can you compare it to a contra fund or even a value kind of a fund? So it is like a value buying or taking a contrarian call in the market. So is balanced advantage fund doing something of that sort?
So मैं आपको so first of all, in the category there are different kinds of balanced advantage funds, right, but all of them are different from the other schemes that you mentioned, like contra value से बहुत अलग है. See, one thing is that even if different balanced advantage funds in the market, there are about 24 balanced advantage funds to choose from, और सबका अलग-अलग strategy है. Some look at something, some look at something else, but all of them at least have one thing in common. That is, they have a mixture of debt, arbitrage, and fixed and equity.
Correct.
So in तीनों का mixture है. When you look at these value or contra funds, they are pure equity funds. As per their SIDs, at all points, at least 80% has to be invested in equity. On 80% तो हमने एक threshold दिया हुआ है, but almost all funds are typically invested 90 to 95% in equity. So आप अगर equity पे उतना exposure है, even if you are a contra fund or a value fund, if market crashes the way it crashed in 2020, your capital will face that short-term erosion. As we saw, that erosion did not last for long, but जो भी आपका वो erosion आया वो time पे आ जाएगा. Whereas in balanced advantage funds, if they are doing exactly what they are supposed to do, try to, and I would use the word try to, buy low and sell high, then they will be able to protect your wealth in such instances. See, finally, होता क्या है कि when you want to take out your money, people probably would have needed their savings, would have had to claw into their savings in April, May 2020. शायद से वो time पे actually में वो liquidity जो mutual fund देती है, उसको use करने की जरूरत पड़ी होगी काफी लोगों को. That my regular income probably has been affected. Let me dip into the savings I have done. अगर अप्रैल मई में अगर आपको अपने पैसे निकालने का मन कर रहा है and markets are down, you anyways have a negative bias that अभी क्यों निकालूं पैसा, अभी तो मैं इतने नीचे पे निकालना पड़ रहा है मुझे.
Correct.
That is what the balanced advantage funds helps you do. Balanced advantage fund did not fall by that much. The fall in balanced advantage fund was somewhere in the region of about between 5 to 12%, depending on what balanced advantage funds you are invested in, because most were actually invested 50, 40, 50, 60% in equity, and the long term basis पे आपका debt का पैसा तो बन ही रहा था. So from that perspective, the fall was not that much at that time, right? So this is what balance advantage fund can do. If you are invested in a value or a contra fund, you would have still seen that big loss. Maybe unka fall baki market se kam aaya hota, but fall was there nonetheless. So that's how they are different.
Correct. So Hardik sir, I would just like to take out some data points from the past, from lot of industry balanced advantage funds that we have. And so this will have a lot of clarity for a lot of people around. And so if we see data from 1st April 2010 to 31st March 2011, Nifty 50 TRI was up 11.5%, and the balanced advantage fund was up 9.5%, 10%. All the industry bats I'm talking about, the range was down. And the very next year, Nifty was down by -8%, and the average return of balanced advantage fund was anywhere between 3 to 6%. So, and there are a lot of instances which I could see from the past 10 years in which lot of, even in 2020, if we talk, and you mentioned it very rightly, from 2019 to 2020, Nifty was down by 25%. And on the other side, we see the balanced advantage fund were in the range of anywhere between 6% to 12%. So yes, balanced advantage funds, I guess, have lesser volatility and also give good returns in both the times in the market.
Yes, Akash. So,
sir, I have one question to ask, and which is from few of the data points that I have collected. When the Sensex was flattish, the index are flattish for years together. So if we take example of 2010 to 2013, I could see in 21st September 2010, Sensex was 20,000, and 20th of January 2013, Sensex was again 20,000. Or maybe if we take example of 2014 to 2016, where the index was range bound between 24,000. Or if we take example of 2015 to 2017, where it was range bound anywhere between 29,700 to 29,800 were the levels. So when the indexes have remained flattish, I see a lot of balanced advantage funds, or majority of them, have given returns even in the flatter markets, which are above 8.5% CAGR. So what happens during that flat years of Sensex or index, that balanced advantage funds are able to give positive returns when indexes are nearly giving a zero return kind of a scenario?
So see, this is actually very a good observation, and it's also easy to explain if I give you this data point. See, मान लेते हैं that markets are sideways, and the broad consensus is कि markets are neither cheap, they are neither nor expensive. So allocation आपका balance advantage fund में typically कितना होना चाहिए फिर? The equity allocation has to be 50%. वो fund manager 50% पैसा equity में डाल के रखेगा, because he doesn't think markets are either cheap or expensive.
Correct.
But the remaining 50% is still invested in fixed income. It is still invested in arbitrage. So that will keep generating certain interest income, certain roll income that arbitrage में से आपको मिलता है, which is equal to the short term interest rates typically, and the fixed income में accrue होता जाएगा whatever income you make on that part. So this first of all happens, it will ensure that even if the markets are flat point to point, you end up making some positive return. So that's point number one. Second is, see, markets on a 3-year basis, there are many instances जहाँ पे 3-year basis पे markets point to point, sort of flat दिख रहे हैं.
Correct.
So अगर आप जुलाई 2019 से या फिर maybe let's say जुलाई 2018 से अगर आप जुलाई 2020 देखोगे, so 2 साल में you would see markets are the same level, but see the volatility that has happened within that period. The market first crashed in March 2020, and in 2020 itself, it has gone up. Volatility is the friend of balance advantage fund model. It's the friend. For a pure equity fund, volatility is considered to be a headache because you have to try to deal with that volatility. But for a balance advantage fund, volatility is welcome. Because when the market falls, it gives the opportunity to buy more, increase your allocation. When the markets go up crazily, that gives the opportunity to actually reduce your allocation. So ये फायदा होता है, because if you have 100% invested in equity, when markets fall by 30%, आपका 30% पैसा डूब जाएगा for that time being. Then when the markets go up again 100%, you will be invested 100%, so आपका 100% पैसा बन भी जाएगा. So anybody who lost money from March 19 to March 2020 has made double his return from March 2020 to March 20 still date, March 20 say August 2021, right?
True.
So that is how your wealth can, basically, the way it will basically gyrate, the way it will move up and down. Balance advantage fund का फायदा ये होता है that even in 2 periods जो आपने बताया भी, seemingly if the markets appear flat कि वहीं के वहीं है, there is some volatility, और वो volatility में भी balance advantage funds will try to take benefit of it. They will probably go down in equity when the markets appear expensive. They will increase in equity when the markets become very cheap. So this will keep happening, ensuring कि equity maybe there is some sort of a positive return. They can buy low, sell high. They can try to do that. And that is why quite a few balance advantage funds have been successful in doing that. One more point I would make over here. काफी बार क्या होता है कि equity में भी आप क्या खरीद रहे हो in the balance advantage fund, वो भी एक अलग topic है. This is where many balance advantage funds in the industry are different.
Correct.
तो कोई अपने equity के portion में small caps, mid caps भी थोड़े लेते हैं, कोई sector के position strong लेते हैं. So it is dependent upon the style of the fund manager also. So 2 balance advantage funds might not show the same return because of 2 things. What kind of model do they follow? I can tell you that there are some balance advantage funds in March 2020 who should have increased allocation, right? Because everybody now can look back at the chart and say, अरे ये time तो market में invest करने के लिए सही time था. Every balance advantage fund should have gone up. But if you look at the fact sheets and check how many funds were actually at 80%, 75%, you will see that not the whole category was able to go up to 80%.
Correct.
So that is the difference in the strategy, the process that people follow. And as we said, human beings are emotional. कभी-कभी वो emotion creep in कर जाता है. That happens. They would have taken a month longer to come up to maybe the higher allocation, and that waiting for another month can also be expensive. So that is the difference. Second difference is how you manage your equity and debt portion. You can take relatively higher risk on the debt side. While 2 funds can have the same model, both go up to 80, both go up to 30 in the same fashion, but one can have relatively higher risk. वो शायद से ऐसे papers लेगा जिसमें yield better मिलती हो. They are willing to take some call on the credit, यानी कि कंपनी का अगर credit quality थोड़ा weak है तो ऐसे कंपनी के bonds में या papers में invest करें, ताकि शायद से if the credit quality improves over a period of time, आप normal fixed income से बहुत ज्यादा return बना सकते हो. Some people do that. Certain equity stocks can give better return than Nifty, if you're able to spot that. So some people do that also. We at Union Mutual Fund don't do it, but that also is a difference in how you manage the portfolio within equity and debt.
Correct. Hardik sir, there is a question, and that question is from a senior citizen client of ours.
Okay.
And most of the senior citizens are in a complete dilemma right now with the kind of interest rates that are going around and the kind of monthly income that has been hit. So it is a very straightforward question that he is making close to 6.5, 6.7% kind of returns in his fixed deposits for a 5-year, 7-year kind of a FD period. So he just wants to understand, can balanced advantage fund beat that kind of a returns, and by what margin on an average in 5 to 7 years period does a balanced advantage fund beat that return? Keeping taxation aside, because taxation is complete different issue, where you would have a 30% taxation, here you would have only 10% taxation. So a complete divergence itself in taxation is visible. But other than taxation, just if you just want to see the gross returns, and if you would like to just talk on that.
Okay, Akash, since the gentleman in question is a senior citizen, by being a virtue of a CFA charter holder, I am obliged to make one comment here. See, for senior citizens, one important thing they need to focus on is what we have a concept called probability of ruin. In the sense, if you have X amount of savings so far, what is the chance that you will have enough savings till your last breath? So that is an important point we have to keep in mind from financial perspective. If you have surplus saving more than that, even agar you take into account your expenses that you might incur for the remainder of whatever time you can see, even after that, if you have surplus expense, then surplus savings, then it makes sense to participate in equity. If not, then taking any equity call could be little risky, I would say. So that's one point that you have to keep in mind. I'm just obliged to make that one simple statement. But assuming that that is not a situation here, the risk appetite exists.
That is surely not the situation from the person who has asked the question. So yes.
So you're saying that the risk appetite exists. There is some position, right? So in that case, I would say that it is very much advisable to have some equity allocation, first of all. And I would say the best way to basically do that is the balanced advantage fund, in my opinion. And that's why I think the question is also coming on that category itself. I would say that historically, the returns have been better than FD. That is what I can say, even if you don't take the tax situation into account, right? So all good balanced advantage funds, you can, and there are quite a lot of them who are doing good allocation. So a lot of them have been able to beat FD returns, but the only difference being one thing that they will not give, which FD of course gives you, is complete stability. So they won't give you complete stability. It will be way more stable than investing in equity. Right. But at the same time, you will have to wait. If there is any surplus amount that you feel that you might need, आपको शायद से आने वाले 2-3 साल में उसकी जरूरत वापस पड़ सकती है, अगर ऐसा कोई भी पैसा है, that I would say is at a little risk, because one doesn't know at what point you might want to take your money out and where is the market at that particular day. So from that perspective, only the amount that you can wait. अगर 3 साल में शायद से आपके requirement के हिसाब से return नहीं बना, if you can wait for 6 months or 1 year, you will get that outcome. Because historically we have seen balanced advantage as a strategy has been able to give relatively better returns. And while we are not talking about taxes in this particular question, it is a different differentiator, important differentiator nonetheless. 3 साल के अंदर आपको वो benefit मिल जाता है. So the point is कि it has historically shown to give better returns. It's a better proxy to FD. I can tell you that personally, a lot of my wealth also on a personal side is not whatever I used to allocate in FD when I was younger. I allocate now in balanced advantage fund because my time horizon is longer. So I'm willing to give it time. And personally also, I have done that. I've historically seen how the returns in the category have been. And that's a choice that I have taken. And I think that if your time horizon is long enough, that's a feasible decision to make. आप FD को return को better दे सकते हो in PAF.
Correct. Understood. Sir, out of the entire understanding from, so one of the client is asking, if my understanding is right, can we get returns closer to index or a little lesser, but surely lesser volatility if we invest in balanced advantage fund? So I guess, is he trying to summarize in the right possible way about the balanced advantage fund?
See, so while that summary is nice, and honestly, सच में बताऊं तो that is the objective, right? Everybody is trying to do that. Anybody is trying to run a balanced advantage fund, they are all trying to do that. कैसे निफ्टी का रिटर्न दे लेकिन निफ्टी से कम रिस्क पे. But right, and but let's understand that return is not free in our market. There is some risk always. While even when I said कि FD से better return मिलेगा, there is some risk you have to understand. It's a how can you mitigate the risk? I would say this.
Yes.
The risk can be mitigated if you increase your time horizon. The risk of underperforming Nifty materially, or let's say FD materially, if you increase your time horizon, that risk gets mitigated. Because over the long run, we've seen that equity on its own has generated better returns than FD.
Correct.
So a fund that will keep investing in and out of the equity, that can typically try to generate, if not better than Nifty, closer to Nifty, possibly over the long run, and with much lower volatility. See, this fund is not, in my opinion, for individuals who want to basically try to beat the market or generate very good returns. Their objective is that I want something close to the market. It might be 1-2% lower, but the volatility should be way lower.
Way low.
I should not be seeing that much of fluctuation in my capital. So
Correct.
that whenever I want to take it out, it is there. So ये वो category के लिए better है. This is not a return maximization, but a risk minimization product. So that's what one point I want to make. Now, just one final thing. There are certain magic periods. Now, this was a magic period to an investment professional. ये हमारे लिए एक unprecedented event है, जहाँ पे within 18 months we have gone from extreme fear to extreme greed. Right? ऐसे होता नहीं है typically. You don't see this kind of gyrations. And hence, while even our 3-year returns, when we completed 3 years in the Balance Advantage Fund in Union Mutual, that was a question everybody is asking, that your 3-year returns are higher than Nifty and volatility तो आपकी बहुत कम है. So is this something that we should expect from this fund? So the answer is, ऐसी volatility रही, so it is possible maybe.
So you can expect wonders.
Then you can expect, but ऐसी volatility आती नहीं है. So that's why it is difficult to say that you will beat Nifty. FD, because the history suggests for that it has happened, I can at least say that history के हिसाब से probability is higher. There is still a chance that you might not get it.
Sir,
but
yeah. So just to add a data point to it, I have collected some data of balanced advantage funds again. So when we see from 1st of April 2010 to 29th of January 2021, Nifty 50 TRI has given a CAGR of 10.47%. There is a balanced advantage fund across categories. We are talking of multiple balanced advantage funds. Have given returns anywhere between 10 to 11.77% CAGR. So I think the 10 years history is clearly speaking that you can make maybe returns closer to Nifty or lesser over a longer period, but surely some lesser volatility is there in place for you, and lot of capital protection is there. So when you see the down capture, you save the downside whenever you see bad periods coming in. I guess that should sum that balanced advantage fund as a whole.
It should, but I would just say that it's just keep your expectations right. Over the long run, I mean, I don't think so किसी ने भी expect किया होगा कि in the last 3 years balance advantage category would do so well, because हम सब कोशिश करते हैं ये चीज करने की, to buy at an attractive price and sell at an expensive price, but ये हो नहीं पाता. The fact that the category itself, not just our fund but good amount of funds, I wouldn't say everyone, so you have to choose, but the fact is the strategy can do wonders. And ये strategy by the way India में अभी इस तरह से adopt हो रही है. In US and in other countries, for example, people are saying active versus passive छोड़ो, asset allocation पे ध्यान देते हैं. आप active passive के बीच में ध्यान देते रहोगे, some funds will do well, some won't, ये पता है हमें. But can you protect well? Forget beating the benchmark. There is no fun in beating the benchmark if it's down 20% and you are down 10%. वो main objective नहीं है. Point is, can I be down only 4-5% when the benchmark is down 20%? So there is a concept of hedge funds globally, जो अलग-अलग assets में invest करते हैं. We are through the balance advantage fund, we are offering something similar where we try to protect wealth and try to grow it as well. दोनों चीजें offer करने की कोशिश करते हैं. So yeah,
correct. Got the point, sir. Perfectly summed up. And also let me congratulate the entire Union Mutual Fund team for the kind of good work that you have done in the balanced advantage category, and you have consistently been in the quartile 1. And I guess in the top 3 in the past 3 years.
Yeah.
And not moving away from the philosophy is much more important than generating returns, is what we feel as an investment house, is what we have understood over last 15-20 years of our experience. So we have seen you guys not moving away from the philosophy and still generating good returns. So thank you for doing that for all our clients. Hardik sir, one question. Now moving away from the balanced advantage fund, the question is where your past experience and your forte has been, and I know the category or the sector that I speak about, pharma, chemicals, has been very close to your heart, and some of our clients know that. So they would just like to understand about what do you think in the pharma sector, chemical sector, healthcare segment, where the money will be made, what is going to happen in that segment in the coming 3 to 5 years. Because, yeah.
So, if any of you have looked at banking sector, then banks में एक division करते हैं, PSU banks, private banks. Private के अंदर corporate banks, retail banks. So this is how typically people think. In pharma also you have to do that segmentation. There are some companies that sell everywhere. They sell in India, they sell in the US, they sell in the Europe. तो वहाँ पे दवाइयाँ बेचते हैं अपने. Some of these companies might not give you very strong wealth generating capability over the long run if they sell everywhere, because the problem is in regulated markets. My view is that it's a leaky bucket. You launch 10 more products in the next year, तो आपके जो पीछे वाले जो प्रोडक्ट्स आपने लॉन्च करके रखे थे, जो आपके 100 प्रोडक्ट्स की पोर्टफोलियो, उस पे प्राइस करेक्शन आ रहा था. सो व्हाट हैपेंस इज दैट आप समझो, ऐसा समझो कि आप बाल्टी में पानी भर रहे हो और बाल्टी में छेद है. So no matter how fast you keep pouring water into the bucket, it will keep leaking. Some of the large pharma companies who sell in the regulated markets of US and Europe deal with that problem, because वहाँ के governments को medicines affordable price पे दिलवानी है, तो they have a system in which they keep reducing the prices every year, and that's a problem. But companies who are selling only in India, where the penetration of healthcare is relatively low, अभी तक medicines are not reaching all the individuals. As income rises, as awareness increases, as diagnosis happens better, that will happen. So I would say today you don't only have to look at pharma, but healthcare in general. I think earlier when we were, let's say, Akash, discussing in 2010, we were discussing pharma companies. Today we will look at the overall healthcare space, companies that are providing diagnostic service. Okay. Right? Companies that are basically ensuring that medicine reaches your doorstep, जो distribution में है maybe. Companies that basically are ensuring, or rather hospital service companies, right? Those are also doing well. We still know that hospital penetration in our country is very low, because healthcare premium, healthcare insurance is also very low. So as more and more healthcare insurance increases, hospital occupancy increases. We see in US, hospitals are making a lot of money. In India, very few hospitals are making that kind of wealth.
True, very true.
So from that perspective, and when I mean wealth, I mean return on capital employed. For every 100 rupees invested in the business, कितना वापस मिलता आपको? And that money today in India, in most hospitals, if you take the data, for every 100 rupees invested, you only get 8 rupees back. और अगर 8 ही रुपया मिल रहा है तो FD में पैसे डालते हैं ना, मतलब. So hospitals in India are not making that much money today, but there are some companies who are making 25 rupees for every 100 rupees invested. So hospitals have started improving in their efficiency. Good business managements have come in place. So यहाँ से I would say कि just दवाई manufacturing वाली companies पे ध्यान मत दीजिए. There might be companies in other ancillary areas, diagnostic, healthcare services, which might make sense. And rather than focusing on companies that sell medicine, you can look at companies who help other companies make medicine. So CRAM manufacturers. So I would say contract manufacturing, diagnostic services, and hospitals stand to make, in my opinion, more wealth for investors than plain vanilla medicine manufacturers, the situation what existed in the last decade. That's my opinion. And chemicals, I think, is linked to the pharma piece. You know, most of the chemical is used in two areas, agrochemicals and pharmaceuticals. Majority of the chemicals that are manufactured by the companies. Then there are, of course, some various areas that they get into. I think because pharma itself is supposed to do well, pharmaceutical manufacturing in our country, and of course, India has a big cost advantage. Chemical companies will also stand to do well. But I would just say this, that आज के तारीख में things have become the way they are. Everybody is buying pharma and chemical stocks. So you have to be very, very careful in deciding what company you want to buy. So take some professional advice from someone. This is definitely the sector for the long run. This will make money in the long run. इसका allocation in overall markets should increase. Nifty में allocation in pharma has gone up to close to 7-8%, I believe. So I think that it is still underrepresented, and this sector will outperform the overall market over the long run. But please seek professional advice while choosing stocks.
Understood.
Akash, if you can allow me to make one comment on our fund house philosophy, if I can make a specific fund house comment.
Yes, please, you can.
So see, one thing that we stand for, which I think I would want to take this opportunity to explain. We believe as a fund, mutual fund, that we don't want to give superlative returns. We don't want to give you very great returns. That's not what we are trying to do. I'm telling you that I'm telling it upfront. Why we don't do that is because we are basically trying to achieve another objective, and that is the objective of consistency. As I've tried to explain in my discussion, that an investor has the freedom to take his money whenever he wants. And no fund manager can ensure that at all times throughout the investment life of the portfolio, they can give better returns. Har baar top return nahi aata hai. The top return comes after some maybe weak performance also. Some fund houses, I would admit, are able to, in some schemes, able to generate top class returns every time. But typically that does not happen. So what we as a fund house stand for is, at any point of time, if you invest in any of our portfolios, we would try to give you above average, above category return. अगर मान लीजिए कि एक कैटेगरी में 25 स्कीम है, तो we will try to be at least in top 12, top 10 on a long term basis consistently. If we can do that, you can at least ensure that you invested with us and you don't have to think यार ये fund house का ये scheme अच्छा है और वो fund house का वो scheme अच्छा है. We want to give you best returns possible on a consistent basis, so that whenever you want to move out, you move out with above average returns within a category. So that's just what we as an AMC stand for. And I just wanted to make that point because I didn't want to come across as someone who is the best return generator, but rather a consistent return generator.
No, thank you for doing that and being upfront, Hardik sir. And that was one of the reasons that I had to mention that there are few fund houses that we deal with, and we deal with very few fund houses who make sure that they are closer to philosophy, or they walk the talk, is what we can say. And we know Union is one of them, so that is the reason we have our allocation with you. So yeah,
thank you.
And one more thing, I guess we can have one question from any of the clients who are there online. So if they can unmute and if they can ask the question, if they have some specific queries, we can take one question, I guess, before we can close the session. So anyone who would like to take a question or ask a question, you can please unmute and go ahead. You have the access with you.
Anil here, am I audible?
Yeah, Anil sir, you are audible. Please go ahead.
So thanks for this great insight on the overall experience that you have, and the way you explained it was really in depth and covered a lot of facets. I have a very direct question for you. That there has been a period in the last 18 months, as you said, where we have seen the lowest and we have seen the highest. What, in your opinion, is the right time to cash out this high?
Okay, so my sense is that if you Anilji, I would want to just add some caveat also before answering this. The short answer is the right time to cash out is now. If you have need of money anyways in the near term, so let's say you had a long-term plan and that date has come today, then it makes sense to cash out now. Maybe you wanted to buy a home by 2022, hypothetically speaking. We are in August, September 2021. This is the right time to cash out for any of your long-term goals that are closer to their deadline. You will not get a better time compared to now to get out. But if you don't have any need of capital today and you are underinvested in equity, for example, then there is no point in cashing out. In my opinion, you can rather constructively keep adding to it. So the short answer is that time is now, but the condition to that answer is that if you don't have any long-term goals left, you have certain amount that you needed to take out at this point of time or somewhere around this point of time. Some people have some plans that they had already identified for either buying a home or for some other near-term needs that they might have. You have some target that is coming up in a year from now. I would say it still makes sense to take cash out the money today.
Understood.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one last question. It is again from Mr. Anuj Shah. So he has asked a question on the chat box. What should be the ideal allocation of one's portfolio into balanced advantage fund vis-a-vis pure equity fund
No.
for someone who's in their 20s with adequate surplus?
This is a tough one. Because this is something that, as I said, this category is also new. So I would be very honest. I don't want to sound very intelligent on a topic that I would say doesn't have too much of data, because this is not, as I explained, it is not even a pure equity portfolio. It's a mixture of equity and debt. It's not a pure debt portfolio.
Correct.
So अगर मैं कहूँ कि FD का पैसा इसमें डालो, so you might be basically under invested in equity. Who knows? So it's very tough to explain, but I would say this, that if your time horizon is, as you're saying, a 20, 25-year-old, 30-year-old is there, whose risk appetite is high. See, personally, I would say that I can give my personal experience. Through my own learning and understanding, I have allocated 90% of what I was typically putting in FD in the balance advantage funds.
Wow.
So I have done that. Every big lump sum I get, when I think the markets are are at the level they are today, I just invest all of it. I mean, I and my wife both. So I have a lot of personal risk also that I'm taking.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's the answer I can give. Now, why I feel, I'll give you the reason for it. Because when I'm investing this lump sum, I personally I don't see the need to take this money out for the next 3 years at least. That's why we are doing an FD also typically. So
Correct.
if I have that thought process and I know there will not be a situation where I will have to take this money out, that part I keep in balance advantage. The portion which I think I might still need for whatever reason, some portion I do keep in FD, which is right now 10% of what it used to be.
That is immediate. At the function, you keep it at the function.
So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
In whatever we did. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for that. Sir, one last thing before we end this session is, we have Mr. Viral Sakhya. He is the managing director of Pride Educare, and there are a lot of students from Pride Educare who have also joined in to understand about balanced advantage fund. So if you could give them some advice about investing and how should they start, because they are in their early 20s who are looking to start investing and just building their career into equities or starting their first investment into equities. So something for the young people who have joined in for the today's
talk. I was once in the same boat, so I can say this with experience, of course, like most of us, almost every one of us. First, find an investment guru. Okay, that's the first thing. And you don't have to find this guru face to face. A lot of these people have written books. Many of them have written articles. Or you can just simply track their websites and go and check what they are doing. Many of these great investors are writing letters to their investors, right? So Berkshire Hathaway does that. Howard Marks does that. Many people do that. So you have, first of all, investment gurus who are distributing knowledge for free. Use that.
Correct.
Or pay for it if you can, but use it. Find your investment guru. Why? Because I believe in one concept that was taught to me by one of the person who I took up as my guru, that it's not about generating return. सबसे ज़्यादा return तो जॉर्ज सोरोस ने बनाया है. But it is about return per unit of stress. How much stress are you willing to take for generating that return? If you want to have sleepless nights, you're willing to do that. So go ahead, take extreme calls, go leveraged, do whatever you think is fair with you, because that is your personality. That is what you have accepted. But then understand the consequences and go with it. If you want to rather have a much more, peaceful sleep, you don't want to worry about it. You are in the game for the long. You are more like Sachin Tendulkar, who wants to put it out in the crease and then play it out. Not like Virendra Sehwag, who just wants to hit the ball out as the first moment he gets the opportunity. Depending on your personality, both are great cricketers, right? We all admire both of them. So based on your personality, you have to figure that out. So you need to find an investment guru. That's point number one. Point number two, have a process. Once you've identified a guru, you learn something from him, you need to have a well-defined process and stick to it. Don't have a process and do something else. You will not learn anything. This whole game is about learning. And you will only learn if you have put down what exactly is it that you're doing. So have a process. Lastly, and finally, no matter what happens, don't stop learning. At no point, even after 30 years of experience, don't say that you understood the market now. Nobody understands the market. So don't stop learning. if you do these three things consistently, I think you are well positioned to generate wealth through the opportunity that the Indian equity markets provide.
Correct. Thank you so much, sir. This was the main question from our students, and even like, we are live on YouTube. So like, many students were like, asking this question on chat box. Even like, some of the students were asking me that like, how can I start if I have some, a little amount in every month, say around like, if I want to start with say around 500 rupees or 1000 rupees a month, then yes, absolutely, you told it very correctly. You need to find a finance guru. And yes, absolutely, this is a great thing where like, even people will connect you with this. Yeah.
I am no guru, but I would say people who have gray hair or no hair should be the people you should target. They've seen many things and they will be able to provide perspective that I possibly can't. So yeah, I just wish all the best to everyone who's aspiring to be an investment professional.
Thank you, Hardik sir, for taking the time out on a Saturday. We had a lot of clients. We had more than 70, 80 clients who had joined in, and a lot of students had also joined in on your session. So thank you for taking out time, being unplugged, giving all your views, especially on the balanced advantage fund, on the markets, and being upfront and true. And also, I'd like to take this opportunity and thank Mr. Nishan for helping out and arranging the entire call. And all our clients, the partners of Shah Investments, thank you for being here. Hope you have had lot to learn, lot to understand, and lot of your queries about where to invest at this juncture of the market. I guess we have an answer that we have hybrid fund, balanced advantage fund. To an extent, we have large cap funds as well, which we can invest, and how to invest in a staggered way. And there are a lot of other ways into some other funds, and do continue our SIPs with a long-term horizon to create wealth, because I guess equity as an asset class is one of the beautiful asset class, both in terms of making returns and also in terms of taxation, because I think there is no other asset class like equities. So yeah, that is it from our end. We'll keep on doing a lot better things in the future. And thank you all for being a part. Thank you.
Thank you, Akash, for moderating this and having me here. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll end the session now. Thank you for joining in, all of you.
Bye.
Thank you, Akash. Thank you, everybody, to be a part of this.
Thank you.